All commissioners are present. Please note that. Item 3, approval of minutes of the January 13th, 2021 regular meeting. If I could have a
Move
motion.
approval.
Second.
Motion by Ed and a second. Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Item 4, approval of minutes of the January 22nd, 2021 special meeting.
Move to approve.
Entertain a motion.
Second.
Move to approve. Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Item 5, approval of fire department bills. Chief Owen.
Good morning, everyone. In your packet, there are 4 sets of bills, 2 from January that were signed by Commissioner Meese, and 2 signed on February 2nd by Commissioner Myers. Looking through the bills, there's really nothing that stood out or jumped out at me of interest. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I ask for your approval.
Any questions on the fire department bills?
Yeah, Scott, could you explain to me the $249 D-handled shovel?
No, I really couldn't. I'm sure Pete could, but anytime, I'm sure that's a specialized shovel that you put the word fire in front of and it triples the price, if not quadruples it.
We've had this conversation before.
Yeah.
Andy asked this before.
Yes, we did. And you told me that it cost so much because it had to be made out of bronze.
Anti-sparking.
Yeah, the anti-sparking tool.
Yeah.
That's what it was, then I would explain it.
Well, otherwise I was going to go to Menards and buy one and sell it to you for $100 and make 75.
Well, maybe next time just paint it before you give it to us.
Yeah, there you go.
Any other questions on the fire department bills? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move approval.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Lori, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Earl?
Yes.
Meese?
Yes.
Keo?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Hirschman?
Yes. Thank you. Item 6, approval of police department bills. Assistant Chief Zeps.
Good morning. In front of you have 4 sets of bills. 2 were signed by Commissioner Myers on the 21st of January and 2 were signed by Commissioner Gershman on the 4th of February. Yeah, the reason, similar to what Scott had, the 4 sets accounts for some of the bills that were coming through from 2020 yet. So other than your typical beginning of the year subscriptions and renewals, there was really nothing that stuck out to me either, but I would be happy to answer any questions and would look for your approval.
Questions for Assistant Chief Zeps on the bills, please? Any questions at all? If not, a motion is in
Move
order.
approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Lori, roll call,
Earl?
please.
Yes.
Meese?
Yes.
Keo?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Hirschman?
Yes. Thank you. Item 7, fire department activities, training reports, and correspondence packet. Scott.
Yeah, so several meetings throughout the month of January. We still have our weekly COVID community meeting. That's with about 15 different individuals. 7B and 7C, you'll see that each shift met with James Rowan as a kickoff to the leadership program. James also presented at the January officers meeting, which went over really well. A little bit of a COVID update here. Nobody is sick, yay. About 60% of the department has received their 2nd dose of the vaccine. And we are getting ready on Monday to resume fire inspection and start more normal operations. I believe Deputy Chief Bacus is also planning on resuming more transports. We had a halt on transports, not that we were getting a lot of requests from the hospital because of this, but We're going to start doing our longer distance once again, and looking at some other stuff. But the vaccination clinic, we partnered with Wood County Health. We offered up the fire station as a drive-through clinic site. The first one was 2 weeks ago, went really well. They had about 220 people drive through and get the vaccination. Last week's was canceled, and it wasn't because of lack of people, it was lack of vaccine. And today it starts again. I believe it starts about 9 and goes until 2:30 today. They have enough vaccine, and we're all set for them. So other than that, there's some the monthly statistics and a couple of checks in there. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. If Steve or Pete have any additions to the updates, they certainly could chime in. Otherwise, ask for your approval. Or place on file, sorry.
Steve, do you have an update?
Just one quick thing I wanted to add. The vaccine clinic, just want to get on record, is by appointment only. Needs to be scheduled with Wood County Health. We have had some people just showing up. Unfortunately, had to turn them away because there is a limited amount of vaccine.
Steve, is any actual fire department staff involved with the immunizations, or is it just we're just providing the facilities?
As of right now, it's mainly facilities. I've made myself available to help out with little things that they need. We do have the volunteers from Wood County out in the parking lot kind of monitoring the people after their vaccination. And they have a radio. I have the other radio. If somebody were to have an issue, we would send a crew out immediately to handle any medical issues.
Thank you.
Randy, let me make a comment, please. I went through the vaccination process the first Wednesday, and it was impressive. It was quick, slick, it was organized. And Steve, I saw you running around, so you were doing something. Anyway, it was a wonder to me how well it went. And my wife and I are very grateful for the opportunity to take advantage of that.
And I guess I will also say Wood County Health is very appreciative. They really love the facility and they really enjoyed the setup and everything. It's a great partnership between us and Wood County Health.
Yeah, and the central location is so ideal, isn't it, for the community? So that all plays into it too. If there's no other comments on the fire department activities, training reports, and correspondence.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Sir, go ahead.
Chief, on the reports to incident response for January, there's a number of false alarm and false calls again. That isn't anybody habitual, is there? Or is it just a scattered bunch of?
Yeah, it's just I think Marshfield clinic had one, the dental clinic had one or two. With these freezing temps, with the cold weather, we start to see a few more false alarms here and there with sprinkler systems having issues, things like that. But it was nothing like we were going to Masonite all 8 times or anything like that.
Thank you.
I have a question too about interfacility and intercepts. The relationship that you've had or developed with the new hospital in the Minocqua area. Have you seen, is there communication between us and them? Is there a need for us to be going there?
So
comment on that?
The request to start doing more transports from Minocqua back to Marshfield was made a couple of months ago, and I know I let you guys know. We were not able to help out with that. Marshfield Medical Center moved forward with purchasing, my understanding is 2 ambulances, but I know one for sure that they have dedicated up in Minocqua to do those transports from Minocqua down here. So since they put their own people up there, we really have not been needed or requested. I did get a request. I was off earlier this week. I did get a request to start doing some more transports locally from Marshfield to Weston, which now that we've had both doses of vaccine, we are going to be able to help out more.
So I guess my question is do these come as one-off requests from, so mostly you're serving in areas where Marshfield Medical Center has facilities, right? That's the major hospitals in the area, Spirus as well. How are you sort of, you're getting those as one-off requests, or they're always out there, you just aren't expecting an uptick because people are saying we're going to start to need you more or do more? How are you managing that sort of?
If I understand the question, they're one-off requests. So when we get a request for a transport, they call the station. Mm-hmm. Like I said, there was a service in the North Woods that had left, and that's where Marshfield Medical reached out and said, hey, we might need you guys to do more transports from there. We were not able to help out that again because of our the COVID precautions we have in place right now. Plus, it takes a rig out of service to drive all the way up there to bring somebody back, which we would prefer a service that's closer, take those calls.
Sure.
I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I'm sort of getting at staffing levels, and we staffed up a little bit, I think, to deal with interfacilities transports and such, if my recollection is correct. And so just trying to understand the balance between the need and the staffing, and are we right sized for what our mission is currently?
Okay, yeah, as far as what we stopped when COVID started was doing more of the long distance to reduce exposure to our people. The southern part of the state was a hotbed back then. And so we kind of withdrew, and like every other service in our area, I think most services stopped doing those long distance transports. And then you saw what you still have currently is a lot of facilities outside of our area won't take patients. That's been a challenge for the hospital, I know. So with us, again, with the vaccination, really is what we're looking at is opening up more, but it's still going to be a one-off request. They'll be calling us to see if we can do a transport to Madison or Milwaukee. And then it'll depend on staffing levels that day if we can actually take it or not.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
I just have one follow-up, Steve. Are you aware, is the Minocqua facility, are they staffing for critical care? And they are, okay.
My understanding is it's a critical care transport coming out of Minocqua. They're also using that rig to transport patients to the helipad. There's an issue up there with landing aircraft. They can't land aircraft close to their facility. So they're kind of doing double duty with their ambulance up there.
Okay, very good. I just wanted to clarify that. Any other, Mike Myers, Commissioner Myers?
On the same subject, Steve, is there, just refresh my memory, is there a limit to, or what's the extent that the contract with Marshfield Medical or Marshfield Clinic have as far as our contract goes to the service area that we cover?
There really isn't an area defined. It's more if we're available, and we always have that right to turn them down. If we have full staffing and they need us to transport a long distance away, we're capable of doing that.
Okay. But there's no limit to where you would go to do a transport as far as the contract goes?
As far as the contract goes, no, there's nothing limiting an area in there.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I think just as one final comment, we do have a meeting coming up. Steve is working on scheduling that with Dr. Horniman at the clinic. Just kind of a touch base, an update, and once that meeting is set up, then we will definitely let you know and what we discussed.
Very good. Anything else? All right, we'll go ahead and place on file. Thank you all for the updates. Item 8, Police Department activities, training reports, and correspondence packet. Assistant Chief Zeps.
Right, other than the regular gamut of Zoom meetings and things like that, we did have, in reference to an email I had sent out on January 14th, one of our canine officers, Chris Haas, and his canine partner, Steffi, received a meritorious tracking award by the Wisconsin Law Enforcement Canine Handlers Association. And that was for his work in assisting Marathon County with finding a relatively violent person that was here in the city of Marshfield. So great job to him. Did an amazing job with him and his partners. So just want to throw that out there. Reference to COVID, like the fire department, we're also rolling pretty good here. We don't have anybody out sick. We don't have anybody out quarantined. We still have the same restrictions set in place. No tours, ride-alongs at this point, but we are looking at scheduling some training that's a little beyond the scope of our travel restriction in the event that this thing does slow down. So that might be real late spring or early summer, but there are some trainings that we're going to have to physically leave the city a little bit longer distance to get the full effect of them. So otherwise, we do still encourage the online trainings. The police department's scheduled to get their second dose of the vaccine on February 23rd. So as I mentioned, I think on the last meeting, we had almost exactly 50% of sworn officers take that first vaccine. And our civilian personnel and our volunteers, the percentage was much higher, so they really took advantage of that. So with that, I would look to have them placed on file, but would also be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Assistant Chief Zeps? Otherwise, we'll place on file.
I'd just like to comment on regards to the Wisconsin surplus online auction. It's interesting that we've got about $6,700 for one of the Tahoes, which was, in my mind, is pretty reasonable return for a used unit that's been through the mill. So just.
Yeah, we've done well with Wisconsin surplus. And again, those squads are relatively stripped down on the inside. They've got, some holes in the roof that are patched and things like that. So it's kind of an interesting process. I know the fire department probably goes through the same thing. You've got to divulge every little thing. So when I go through it to sell it, I'm taking pictures of every little hole in the dash, everything in the hood and the roof. So, but yeah, it has worked out well for us. So we'll keep using it.
Good.
Very good. Anything else on the activities report of the police department? All right, we'll go ahead and receive and place on file. Item 9, hearing in the matter of charges filed against Chief of Police Richard Gramza. Establish hearing protocol, establish any evidentiary issues, and set further scheduling. Good morning. I would like to note Attorney Wolf Graham, Attorney Paul Kinney representing Chief Gramza, and Kyle Gulia representing City of Marshfield. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. So the purpose of the hearing is really to discuss any issues that need to be decided prior to the hearing and also schedule this matter. I've received the communication from Attorney Kinney and also regarding a request for discovery. And I also saw Attorney Kyle Gulia's response to the request for discovery. My question is for both you gentlemen, is there any additional authority requiring this kind of discovery for us?
Well, it seems how it's my motion. I'll go first here.
Yeah, that's fine.
There is no discovery there's no rule that requires pre-hearing discovery. However, pre-hearing discovery is permitted, and I can cite to State v. Harwick for that, and to Conway v. Board, and I've got the citations if you want them. The concern really is a due process concern. I also refer you, although this isn't legal authority, to an article by Paul Schwarzenbart from the Stafford law firm, the October 2015 article from Municipality Magazine, where he also notes that police and fire commissions do have the authority to allow for pretrial discovery. The idea is that you want to avoid any issues with due process. Due process is a flexible concept, and the amount and whether discovery is necessary or not will depend on the facts of the case. Given the complex nature of this case, the numerous witnesses and facts that span a lot of time, it's going to be Chief Gramza's position that discovery is necessary in this particular case for him to achieve his due process rights. The safest route to take to avoid a successful due process argument later on down the line would be to allow at least some discovery early on. Another advantage is practical. If we can do discovery and do depositions, we can possibly narrow the issues and streamline the actual hearing when witnesses and you folks have to show up. The other advantage is if we're able to do depositions either by video or transcript, there's also the possibility of being able to simply get them into the hearing as opposed to having the people show up live, which is less inconvenient. Otherwise, I'm going to have to treat all testimony at the hearing like a discovery deposition, and I'm going to have to pursue absolutely every angle because I will not have had a chance to do that in advance of the hearing, which will make the hearing itself take a lot longer.
Thank you, Attorney Golia. Kyle, if I could hear from you.
And the statute's clear that the very essence of the Police and Fire Commission 6213 process is to be a process that is expeditious and that is to be an administrative hearing. There's nothing in the statute that provides for discovery. It's specific. It provides for subpoena power for the commission president to issue subpoenas. Administrator Bargs, we have no problem discussing exchanges of evidence with Attorney Kinney and addressing those issues to make the hearing move as smoothly as possible. But there's nothing that suggests that this entire process needs to be a federal civil court proceeding before it even reaches the commission level, let alone the costs that are incurred with depositions, with regard to court reporters, with regard to all of those elements. Simply put, that's the hearing. We subpoena witnesses, we present witnesses at the hearing, and there's cross-examination that is permitted. And of course, one element that isn't addressed if there is discovery and depositions is if the commissioners have any questions for any of the witnesses, which is exactly why the witnesses simply need to provide testimony at the hearing. So from our standpoint, we're trying to move this case forward. The preference being that it be done in a manner that, yes, is fair, but is also expeditious. And so our perspective is that witness testimony to be taken in front of the commission via subpoena if needed to get the witnesses' attendance.
Attorney Wolfgram, do you have any comments?
No, the only thing I'll say is that, I don't see a requirement for discovery to be provided under the statute that would govern this proceeding. I can certainly tell you that when it comes, I understand a due process argument. I think Attorney Kinney raises that, but I will note that we have criminal proceedings in the state, both misdemeanors and well, I'll start with misdemeanors because there's no pre-hearing that would engage in that unless someone would have some kind of a motion that would trigger that. And what I mean by that is a motion on a preliminary matter. So we don't have depositions in criminal matters. My view is that we don't have a legal argument, a legal requirement to provide that. So I think it's up to this body's discretion as to whether you want to allow.
My thought is because there is not a legal requirement, I would not want to allow that. Although I do want to think that we could allow the exchange of information that Kyle mentioned. I think that would be similar enough. I think the scope of this is so large and it could just get larger and longer. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to entertain a motion to disallow this kind of discovery in this matter before the evidentiary hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Gordy. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
I'm sorry, I got a question.
Mike, go ahead.
The thing that sticks out for me is that it's not required. There are probably a number of things that could come up that drag this thing on and on and on and on. And if it's just the first thing that we're faced with making a decision on, then I feel comfortable in just moving along with it, especially if it's not required. So
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Lori, roll call vote, please.
Earl,
Yes.
Neese,
Yes.
Keel,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Gershman.
Yes. Thank you. So the next thing is a schedule, scheduling this for hearing. Obviously we have all heard from the public that, no more delays, and they want to have some resolution to all this. So what I'd like to do is schedule the hearing, but allow the hearing to occur after Chief Grams's February court date. So what I'm proposing is, could we start in early March and be done by the 18th? And, what kind of time frame? Or how many days are we going to need, gentlemen? Paul, Attorney Kinney.
I think by habit, Your Honor. Mr. Commissioner.
Yeah, that's all right.
I think we've got 3 principal charges that are, I imagine we're going to probably be able to do 1 witness a night. I think we're going to need about 40 hours worth of hearing time for my client to get a just hearing in this matter. So I don't know how long you intend to go, but my guess is, and this is just an estimate at this point, we're going to have about 40 hours worth of testimony.
Attorney Gallia, Kyle.
Yeah. So it's all going to depend on how much time we have for each block. Whether we could fit, as Attorney Kinney raised, potentially 1 witness, maybe a few witnesses in. Because there are going to be some witnesses that I intend to present that I would say might be quicker witnesses. And then there are going to be witnesses that we would intend to present that are going to be absolutely much longer witnesses, where I would also anticipate lengthy cross-examination as well by Attorney Kinney. So from a structural standpoint, Attorney Kinney's assertion that the hearing may take 40 hours, I don't think is out of line. If I have what I'm estimating to be maybe 15, 16, 17 witnesses that would need to be put on, and some of those witnesses being longer witnesses, some of them being shorter witnesses, also anticipating that Chief Gramsa is going to have put on witnesses in his defense, you're going to have a significant number of witnesses. So in that regard, knowing how long the commission is blocking for a hearing for an evening portion is helpful, because that way, if there's a way that I can present the case and try to fit in multiple witnesses during that block of time, will help this matter move forward. But also recognizing that there is the very real possibility that a witness may take the whole block. The second issue that I just want to make certain is clear is we're going to be taking private individuals out of their private lives. And if I'm going to be calling that person as a witness, I want to make certain that I can get them on the stand that day. It's going to be very difficult for some individuals to even come forward before the commission. I recognize that. I think everybody does. And so how it's structured and how these time blocks are set are very important, I think, for the respect for the witnesses, in as much as ensuring that the chief gets a fair hearing. So with that understanding, what is the commission looking at from the standpoint of a start time for a date and an end time for a date?
Well, my thought is, if we're looking at, if we had 10-hour days, you're talking 4 days minimum. So you might as well schedule a week, 5 days, 8 to 10 hours each day. Attorney Wolfgram, does that sound reasonable to you?
Well, I think it really depends. And I think that's part of what Kyle was raising as a question, is that, what time during the day you intend to start. We got to be realistic about what your availability is for this body. You want to make sure that each of you are there to attend. So if you're talking about starting at some point in the afternoon, that may be realistic. But if you're talking about starting at 5 or 5:30 at night, you're really pressed to get 4 hours of testimony in anybody's normal time frame. I'm probably well known to be, extended in late night hours, but many aren't. So, from a realistic point of view, if you start at 5 o'clock even, 9 o'clock would probably be about the most you can get out of a day. So if you're talking about 40 hours, and it sounds like Attorney Gulia did concur with Attorney Kinney, I think you got to look for probably 10 days. That might be very difficult to find a 10-day block of time straight. So there may need to be some flexible scheduling if there's going to be a break in between there. But that's my take, is that you're probably, again, I think what this body needs to focus on is, what are you looking at in terms of a start time during any given day? Then when you do that, think about those hours that we're talking about, and how many hours could you realistically get in on each evening if that's the way you're going to do it. If you're going to try to do it during the course of the day, you need to talk about the practicalities of being able to do that for an extended period of time.
So why would it have to be evening? Can we just start at 9 and go until 6 or 9 to 5, take an hour break? I mean, is there any reason we can't do that?
There is, as long as you can accommodate that,
Yeah. Randy, you've got one problem, in that one commissioner is fully employed 8 to 5.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, on a short day, that would be 8 to 5. So I realize this is going to be a scheduling issue. I guess, Jen, I would ask you, would you be available for any full days with your job, or is it just evenings are going to be?
No, I would say yes, but committing an entirety of a week or more full days will be difficult for me to continue doing my daytime responsibilities, given the coronavirus situation. I mean, I could see afternoons into the evening, sort of almost the equivalent of a full day, but giving me some work time in a morning, that kind of thing. I think could work with some planning.
Okay. So if we could start, a reasonable start time would be 1 to 2 in the afternoon, and then we'll go until 7 to 8. How does that sound for everybody?
Yeah, I think some of it just depends on when we stop and start as well. The other thing is, I'm looking across, I'm the only mother in the crowd, or parent with children at home. So I do have to attend to parenting responsibilities as well. So I'm sort of the rate limiting person, but
so if we went 1 to 6, gentlemen, it's going to be
8 days.
So 8 days is what I'm guessing. So I would really like to have this finished by the 18th of March, if we could do this.
So that's all of us probably too. That's a lot of hours to digest the information will be, in a day. That seems reasonable. I can accommodate that.
Anybody have a calendar in front of them? Let's figure this out.
I have, I'm looking at my calendar, and of course we have all kinds of scheduling. But if you looked at if you're looking at the 18th or maybe 19th is a Friday. So if you went from the beginning on March 8th, that's Monday, and you run it all the way through that week and the next week, that would get you to March 19th if there's availability. That's a full 8 days, and I suppose in theory, you have an option of looking at availability, if there's a Saturday time period or whatever, if it started to look, and you wouldn't have to do that the first Saturday, but if it looked like you weren't going to conclude the hearing, you may be able to push it over to that next week. At least there's a full set block of time. But again, you've got you're going to have to, witness issues and things like that. But at least that's a block. That's the block. That is a block of time that would fit within what you're talking about.
If I may intervene, I'm happy to accommodate the schedule as much as I can, but I don't have a consecutive 8-day block of time free between now and March 18. I've got, the cases and other obligations that simply can't be moved. And I wanted the commission to know about that up front.
Randy? And maybe we do need to focus a little bit in terms of input from the respective council. Does that mean that you don't have a block of time at all that would accommodate that through that entire time period? Or are you saying that, if we were to limit some of those days to evenings, are we able to get something in through that time period?
Of course. I'm just saying that there is not an 8-day block of time where I can be in presence in Marshfield for a hearing at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. There isn't an consecutive 8 days where that can happen between now and March 18th.
What can you accommodate? I mean, you must have a calendar that you could state what? Yeah,
sure. Well, you tell me the date you want to start, and then I can let you know, or I can list the dates off now if you'd like, whatever you prefer.
Kyle, I want to ask you the question. Can we start March 8th and have some flexibility in respect to Attorney Kinney's schedule and his availability?
So I'll lay out my challenges as well. I do know that I have one witness that is, I do know that I have one witness that is out of town the week of March 8th. If there is the possibility of that witness or even getting the hearing process started before March 8th, then I could try to put that person on the witness stand early to address that issue. The other challenge that I run into is from March 15th through approximately the end of the month, I'm out of state. March 16th through the end of the month, I'm out of state. But if we are looking at the dates that are there, I can do my best to work with the commission, from March 4th, March 5th, March 8th, March 9th, March 10th, March 11th. The 12th would be a challenge to do anything during the daytime, but the evening of the 12th could work from that side, and then the 15th on that Monday.
Attorney Kinney, could I hear from you? I don't know if you had a chance to look at your calendar.
Sure, I'm looking at it now. I have evening meetings already scheduled on the 8th and 9th. I could do the 10th, the 12th, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yeah, the 10th, the 12th, the 15th, 16th, 17th, the 23rd, the 24th, and the 25th.
Kyle, when are you leaving in March?
March 16th.
March 16th, and you're not going to be back until April?
Yep.
So we got the 10th, 12th, the 15th.
If I can just interject, maybe you already guys know this, but it's not unusual for these things to happen in gaps.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to me, it sounds like we need to probably lay out a count. Do we have to make a decision right now as to the dates, or this is a time to identify that there are significant scheduling issues and then we come back?
I'd like to walk out of here today knowing the dates.
Okay.
Yeah, it's best to have those pinned down.
Thank you, Hap.
I think it makes sense at least to create a block of time with the understanding that you may be, somehow pushed outside of that. But if you don't pin something down now, I do think it becomes, problematic for two reasons. One, just simply getting something there and working through what are obviously going to be scheduling challenges, trying to work that out with the attorneys and witnesses. But in addition, just simply planning those issues that were being discussed in terms of, those, witnesses and how for the attorneys to at least plan for what's going to happen. My thought is that, if you look at those, my thought is that if you took a block of time and you put it on, the calendar saying these hearings, the hearing will begin on such and such a date and be scheduled through a block of time, and then we can pin down maybe through the president and the attorneys to set which days, what kind of blocks of time we have within that period. At least you've got something on the calendar, and if there's got to be some cleanup, meaning you've got some days that have to be scheduled as you're going through the hearing process, that can be done. But at least we're in it, and at least you're taking testimony and making some headway. And then the other thing is, who knows, as you start to do these things, it may be that some of the issues are, become less significant than what we're expecting.
So we started with March 8th as the first possible date?
Yeah, it'll actually be the 10th now. So we're thinking the 10th, 12th, 15th, 16th, and the 17th. Kyle, you leave on the 18th, is that right?
The 16th.
16th, okay. 10th, 12th, and 15th are sure.
Well, and I heard the 12th was only in the evening. Is that true?
Yeah, the 12th that's my issue. I would only be available in the evening on that date. Let me lay out for the commission another concept. From my contingency concept, we always run into scheduling issues and everything. I have discussed with one of my professional colleagues that if the availability for the commission was of such a nature that it didn't align with my schedule in March, that he would be in a position to prosecute the charges. And I do know that he is available the weeks of March 15th, 16th, 17th, and then the 23rd, 24th, and 25th, which were dates that were identified by Attorney Kinney as available dates. And if those dates do work and that helps get this process moving forward rather than having it drag on, then he and I can make that work. It would be simply that he would be stepping in and prosecuting the case, which isn't going to be an issue from that side.
Okay, I tend to agree with that. 10, 12, 15, 16, 17, 23rd, 24th, 25th. I would like some discretion to work with Hap Wolfgram and Attorney Kinney to just firm up the times, if that's okay, Paul. Attorney Kinney, firm up the time, start times, start end times, because some of us are actually have to work too. So sure. That would be just great.
Well,
so,
Andy, if you want, and I think we had discussed at one point, looking at some kind of a scheduling order, but if you were to schedule it through that block of time, March 10th through the 25th, for example, and then, you'd have the ability to sort of work out what are the start times and the blocks of time that would be available between yourself and we can do it through legal counsel, but both Attorney Kinney and Attorney Guya, that we can pin down the start times on any of those days and how that would work out. So if we get a block and put it in and you look at it through the, I guess being the 10th through the 25th, and we work from there forward, that should give you the latitude to just set a block of time and work out the details as to the time and what's going to happen on any given day outside of that by agreement.
Okay, very good.
Randy, This is beginning to feel like a faculty meeting. I'll move that.
Can I just have you wait on a motion? There's a couple more items we have to address, and then I can entertain a motion. Is that okay?
I don't want to wait.
Yeah. Go ahead, make your motion.
No, you go ahead. Okay. Otherwise, you'll whine and snivel, and I have to deal with that.
I don't want you to have to suffer through that. So we have a date to start the hearing. It'll be March 10th. Time for a hearing start date. That'll be subject to change, but looks like the afternoons. We know the number of days that's going to take. We're just going to plan on 8. Item, getting back to the evidentiary thing, Attorney Kinney and Golia, I would propose that we allow for the filing of witness lists provided to each party, of course, and any exhibits, any input on that at all, just sharing the information between the two?
Well, just to preserve the record, I'm going to object on the grounds that I don't think this schedule gives me adequate time to prepare for the hearing and to give my client a fair hearing. But as long as I've made my record, if we could exchange exhibits and witnesses by the 1st of March, that would give me enough time to process it and be ready for the start date of the 10th.
I have no problem with that. And what I would suggest is that Attorney Kinney and I exchange our witness lists and exhibits on March 1st. And we can do it electronically unless file size or something of that nature necessitates the delivery of records if they won't transmit electronically. And if we could do that, I'm happy to coordinate that so that exhibits and witnesses are transmitted, let's say by noon on March 1st.
Attorney Kinney, is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we covered everything. We covered scheduling, witness lists, exchange information. What I'd like to do now is I would ask for authority from this body to issue a written scheduling order pursuant to what we discussed today. Can I get a motion allowing me to issue a written scheduling order consistent with this conference that we had this morning? Could I get a motion for that?
I'll make that motion, Randy, but I would like it to include, have to think about how a way to word, with the intention that the process be completed by the 25th, understanding that if there is reason to extend that date, we can.
Certainly, we can amend that motion, and certainly on this scheduling, we're going to have to, for lack of a better term, we're just going to have to roll with the way it goes. If it takes a little bit longer, it does. Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second. Look, I have a question.
Thank you, Mike.
Just to clarify, I've been paying attention, honestly, but is the 8th isn't part of that, correct? Okay.
It is not. It is not. Start date is the 10th.
Out of the state that day, so. Okay, thank you. I did second it.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
President Gershman.
Yes, please, Steve Bart.
This isn't part of the motion, but I want to get it in before I miss it. Has there been discussion already regarding possible venue for this hearing?
Oh, we have not. I was thinking council chambers, if that's possible, because it is a public hearing.
Well, I'm sure we can make that possible,
Steve?
Randy. The question is, again, this is open to the public, correct? And with social distancing and whatnot, the council chambers looks pretty small, pretty fast. So I don't know that a decision has to be made right now. I just want you to be thinking about where you believe it would be best held, and we can maybe talk about that on the side.
Yeah, thank you. That's something I really did not consider, the size of the possible crowd and also safeguards with COVID. Thank you. Any other comments by anyone?
President Gershman, the only other request that I have of the commission is that I do want to confer with my partner to ensure that he is available on March 10th and March 12th, as those dates were not dates that I confided with him on, to see if he would be available to commence the hearing on that date. I do know that he is available the week of the 15th and the week of the 22nd. So that shouldn't be an issue there, but I will, I've already asked him for confirmation. I'm just waiting on that from him.
So I will work on the scheduling order. If there's any change at all, attorneys, just please forward everything to Attorney Wolfgram.
Very good.
And or copy me in on it. It's fine. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
Harold? Yep, go ahead.
You know, I think you got a motion on the table, so you may want to, you know, address that. Is that correct? Have you gone through that?
Yeah, we do have a motion, you know, to give me the authority from the body to issue a written scheduling order pursuant to this hearing. So we have a motion and a second on that. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Lori, please.
Earl,
Yes.
Meese,
Yes.
Keo,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Gershman.
Yes. Motion passes. We have some work to do. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. Oh, Hap, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The thing is, I just want to make sure, because we kind of outlined the obvious things, but is there anything else that either council feel like we need to be looking at or address in a scheduling order? I'll be working with President Gershman to try to put that together. So.
Attorney Kinney, I'll ask you first. Is there anything you think we need to know? Anything additional?
No, I don't think there's anything here that I'm not confident I can work out with Attorney Gulia.
Okay.
There are two things on our end that I would just like clarification on. The first is with regard to subpoenas. Do Attorney Wolfgram and the president of the commission prefer that we prepare the subpoena and then have President Gershman sign the subpoena? And then who would handle service of the subpoena? Would it be the respective parties, or is the commission going to handle the service of the subpoena? That's the first issue. The second issue just relates to the presentation of exhibits to the commission, which I can address after the subpoena issue.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, my take on that is that you guys are going to know more what you want to do in regard to that, who, where, etc. So if you want to prepare the subpoenas and forward them through me, I can make sure that they're accomplished, that they've been executed by President Gershman. We would plan to include in the scheduling order that all subpoenas be forwarded to the president specifically, so that we kind of streamline that process, but you can go through me to do it. And I also feel the same way in terms of service. I think that the individual parties, unless you guys really have an objection to it, it makes sense for you to basically, you know, have those served yourself. Having control over that, I think, puts you in better control in terms of timing on these issues that, you know, based on the discussion that we've had here this morning, could become, you know, something that is a moving target at times.
Very good. And then the second matter just relates to when I've handled PFC hearings in the past. We've preloaded a binder with the exhibits with the instruction that commissioners not read ahead into the binder until the exhibit is introduced. Those exhibits would be the same exhibits, of course, that I would share with Attorney Kinney on March 1st. The preloading of the binder just helps the process move more efficiently, but I wanted to determine whether there was any objection to utilizing that process rather than just simply handing an exhibit out at each time it's introduced.
Attorney Wolfgram, do you have an opinion?
You know, I think this is a call for Attorney Kinney. I don't see a problem with proceeding on that way, but I think, you know, if there's a concern that the exhibits are, you know, sort of in place ahead of time, if that's a concern that he has, then I think he can raise it and you can make a decision on your discretion.
In principle, I don't have an issue with presenting the commission, which is essentially the equivalent of a court, with all of the exhibits and trusting them not to consider any exhibits unless they're accepted into evidence. That's the way typically you do a bench trial in circuit court or in district court, in federal court. But as people were talking, my brain's moving. I do have one other question, which I will keep to myself until you're satisfied that you've addressed the one that's right before you.
So my take is that, you know, I'm not hearing you really objecting to that process, so that's fine. But what I would suggest for each of you as we move forward, you know the drill. If there's an issue, bring it up. If you can't work it between yourselves, I mean, obviously, if you can, then there's no issue at all. Ultimately, it doesn't have to be decided. But if there is an issue, I think you raised your objection even before this hearing, Attorney Kinney. We know how that works, so go ahead and do that. Copy me in, and if we need to, we can convene some type of discussion. I think that when we put together a scheduling order, we'll try to give some authority to the president to address some of these issues pre-hearing if necessary. So, and that'd be the same thing. If a scheduling order is issued and it goes out, if there's an objection, let's, I'll serve that up on each of you. And if there's an objection, let's have that discussion ahead of time. So, like a 5-day notice. If you get that scheduling order and there is a concern about something in there, raise that way, and then the body can deal with
it. That's fine with me.
Okay, thank you. And Attorney Kinney, did you have one other comment?
I did. There's likely to be pre-hearing motions dealing with evidence or maybe anything. Would it be possible to have a deadline for pre-hearing motions on the 3rd of March?
Any Attorney Gulia, Hap, I'll have you weigh in on that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
And then there'll just need to be time for response and then for the commission to address those motions.
Thank you. No, sounds like no problem at all, Attorney Kinney.
Thank you.
We'll do that. Yep.
I did have one last thing. I apologize in my chart. So just typically in these proceedings, there's an opening statement and then there's a closing argument. And if there's any sort of time limits that the commission imposes, I just wanted to know what those were beforehand. I mean, typically for an opening statement, 10 minutes is sufficient. For a closing statement, maybe a little bit longer, for purposes of summarizing the case so that the commission can then go deliberate. But I just wanted to have an idea of what the commission was looking at for those time limits.
I'm thinking it's reasonable. If you said 10 minutes, let's do 15 minutes for opening. Closing, typically, what do they run? Attorney Kinney, do you have an opinion? Closing.
Well, in a case this complex, I would say an hour, frankly.
Okay.
An hour per party.
And you're okay with 15 for opening?
Again, in a case this complex, I think it's a little short. I'd prefer 30 minutes. Not that I necessarily take all that time, but I'd prefer 30.
All right. I think we'll make it 30 for opening and 60 for closing. I'll make a note of that too. Allow you a little time. I know there's a lot to Any other points that we need to cover here?
Nothing on our end.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, I'll look forward to your contact with Attorney Wolfgram. We'll work on this scheduling order right away. Again, if there's an issue, please reach out and we'll clarify, do whatever we need to do to accommodate both parties. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you. Everybody have a great week.